Hi folks, welcome to CakeCraft with Janette, episode 6. We've been making lots of lovely things in this series. You can see most of them behind me. So if you missed any of them, you can pop back onto CakeFlix and watch them later, catch up with them again. So what are we making today? I'm excited about this one. We've gone a bit Celtic, my homeland. We're going to make a little standing stone, but it's illuminated. Can you see that? How cool is that? I need to switch the lights off so you can see properly, but you hopefully see in the pictures. Okay, so I'm going to work on a little mini version today. I'll show you. So I've got a little hill made out of Rice Krispie treats. Basically just a lump of Rice Krispie treats, very technical. Covered in sugar paste. I've added in some little details like little stones, which I can show you how to make, that sort of thing. But yeah, basically just a lump of Rice Krispie treats. You can do it in cake if you want, you can make this bigger if you want. But that's what we'll be working on the base of, and we'll make an illuminated standing stone to go on top of that. But I will also show you just how to make the wee ones as well, just in case you want just like a normal non-lit version for your cake, okay? But yeah, illuminated standing stone, that's what we're going to make today. It's actually really simple, so don't panic. No wires or anything like that. Very straightforward, but really cool effect. And you'll see this in all sorts of mythological stories, films, books, games, everything. So I think it's a really cool trick to know. So I'll just get the camera sorted and we'll get started. Okay guys, so we'll get started on making standing stones. The first thing I'll show you is making a small standing stone without lights. Okay, so I've got the bigger one here so you can see it in the corner. The paste I'm using today is Cake Duchess modelling paste. I find that's a really nice firm for making things like this. So we're just going to take a small amount. So this is just one of the smaller basic standing stones. I'll show you how to do that first because they're pretty easy, and you can whack a good few of them out in just a couple of minutes. So just softening it off a little bit, pressing it between my hands and gradually sort of shaping it into a standing stone shape. So I tend to press it down on the work surface so I get a nice base and just work out roughly what sort of shape I would like. And then I use, my modelling tools, what I'm using again quickly. Cake Duchess again. This is the tools that I use right throughout all my tutorials. You'll see if you go back and look. They're brilliant for modelling things like this. So this is the main tool set I use throughout. So I'm using this one, which has like a little knife tool at the end. And I'm just going to mark in some little cracks around the edge, okay? Not too many, just a couple is fine. And then I'm going to add some texture with my super duper expensive cake decorating tool. My favourite, clean and never used for anything else. Little bit of texture like this, very simple. Remember up the sides as well. I use also a piece of tin foil, another high-tech piece of equipment for you there. Scrunch it up, pull it out a little bit again, and you can press that in, and that gives you really lovely detail too. Super quick, easy peasy way to get some texture. And when you paint these, then the paint picks up all the detail, okay? And then the last one, another high-tech piece of equipment. Last of the big spenders, me. And I just use the toothbrush for some sort of finer detail and just in where the cracks are. Just add a little bit more detail. Okay, and you can go around some of the edge parts, maybe some around here. Okay. Very, very simple. And that is pretty much it, okay? I just work on those like that until I have a nice little set of stones. Now, if they're slightly bigger stones, this size isn't actually too bad, but around the edges, quite often some of the stones are almost layered. So what I do is I just up the edges with a knife, make little marks. Just watch your fingers when you're doing this. And it makes it look like that sort of layered rock. And that's going to help us when we're making this. and I'll explain why when we get there. There's a good reason for it. So just up the edges, like there's kind of layers of stone together. And then you can go back in. What have I done with my tool? There we are. We can go back in again and just sort of make a few extra deep marks, maybe one coming across and up. Okay, and just work on that. There we are, one little standing stone. So they're really easy to make, quite a lot of them in a short amount of time, okay? So that's nice quick ones. I'll show you how to paint them at the end. It's basically the same as this. So yes, just whack out lots of different shapes of those for your stone circle, if you're making a stone circle, like the one I showed earlier, yeah? Okay, now, the bigger standing stone. So with the bigger standing stone, we need to make it hollow so that we can have a light shining inside, okay? So the way I did this was I've used wafer paper. Okay, so this is just your normal kind of the potato starch kind of stuff. A little sheet of that, and I've cut out a shape that is the same kind of shape as this. Okay, but you can cut them out to whatever shape you like, but that's the shape I'm going to go. A lot of the standing stones actually have a slanted top to them. If you look at them, you'll see that. Okay, so that's the little piece of paper that we're going to work with. Edible wafer paper. I'll just put that to one side. Okay, so this is the little bit that we're going to work on. And what you do is you basically start working up the pattern. So you're not working up the pattern that is lit, you're actually working on the pattern round that, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to roll tiny little sausages. And I've got, in here I've got a little bit of edible glue. You can use water as well to make it stick, but you have to watch. I find water goes through this too quickly and makes it all soggy and really difficult to work with. So just a tiny amount of edible glue. Okay, it's not terribly easy, but just tiny amount, or you'll get in a big sticky mess. Okay, so I'm just going to paint on a little pattern that I think I want. So I think I'll do one up here. So not too much, just enough to let that piece of paste stick and take it to the edge. Just a little swirl and take it to the edge. And then I'm just going to start laying this on. You just get it, I find if you just get it stuck roughly to begin with, and then you can kind of move it around with one of the tools after. That works a wee bit easier, I find. So what you're trying to do is leave a space, because the space of the swirl, the gap, is actually the part that will be lit up, okay? So this tool of Etty's I find really useful. It's like a very fine, flat point. I'm not sure what else you could use. I suppose maybe a cocktail stick or something like that, but I find that really useful for manoeuvring this. So I'm just going to press it down gently and get it into the position that I want it to be in, making sure we've got that nice gap in between there, okay? And gently press it down to make it stick. Just grab a little bit more edible glue. There we are. And I'm going to trim that off there at the edge. So, thinking about that shape, we've got a swirl coming round here. Remember, it's the inside shape. So we need to kind of finish this off. So we need to start filling this a little bit with paste. But what I find easiest to do is get in your swirls first, if you're doing a swirl pattern. So get them all in, like all the ones that you want to put on, and then fill in the in-between sections. So that's what we're going to do just now. I'll just quickly add in another couple. I think we'll do 3 on this one. So we'll do another one. Oh, that's a bit much glue. Getting a right mess, I've used too much glue, so I'm trying not to do that today. We'll see how that goes. Okay. So try and think about the positioning of where you want it to go. Will we make it a bigger one? I think we'll make this one a bigger one. So going round there and round again. Try and do that. So keep your paste quite thin little sausage. And then just lay it out again. So again, just get it roughly into position, and then you can go back and work it out a little bit better. And also use a little bit more glue if you need, you know. So start with a very small amount, yeah, and just add where you need it to help. Don't worry about it being too even as well, you know. As long as there's a nice gap, don't worry about it being too even, because we're going to texture all this like stone, so it's going to go all, yeah, rough and textured anyway, so it really doesn't matter too much about being even or anything like that. Okay, so get that in there. Give it a nice curl on the end if you can. A bit more glue. There we are. And just press it down to make sure it's stuck, which it has. Trim it off at the edge. And then we'll do one more down here, I think. That'll do for this one. So you just fill in the pattern that you want. I'm doing swirls. I mean, you could try some sort of really, if you were making it a bit bigger, I think it'd be a bit difficult on this size, but if you were making it a bit bigger, you could probably do, gosh, I'm trying to think how to do this back to front. I can never do these back to front. Is that it? I think so. Oh dear. Yes, if you wanted to do a more complicated pattern, you could quite easily, if it was a wee bit bigger, I think. But just remember, you're kind of working in reverse, so you're not making the pattern with the paste, you're actually making the surrounding of the pattern with the paste. But I'm pretty sure you could manage to work in a more complicated pattern on a bigger cake, you know. Right, so instead of going that way, I want to go this way. Good Lord. There we are. I find it so difficult to do the opposite of the one that I just did. I think I've done exactly the same, so that's cool. I don't know why I struggle with these, it's really funny. You could always draw it out before you do it. Okay, that's going to be a cool pattern though, I think that's fine. Okay, let's trim that off, there. Just make sure this is all stuck, which it is. And then basically you just fill in all the rest of the space. So what you need to do here, I want this line to come towards the edge here, so I need to fill in some more paste here. So what I would do is add in a little bit here, like this. So you see how that then makes this line, okay? That's what you're trying to do with all the curves. So do the same on this one. A little bit of glue. Finish off that line, and we'll finish off this one as well. And don't worry about joins and things, because you can see on this one it all becomes rough stone anyway, so you really don't need to worry too much about that. You don't need to sort of smooth them off or anything like that at the minute. So we'll just pop that on there. And then a little bit on the bottom one. And there we are. And trim that off, okay? And then you just take your paste and you basically fill in all this area here, round here, and here, and just leave those 3 spirals sort of empty with no paste. So you can just press out little bits of paste with your fingers, or you can roll out a piece, whatever is going to be easiest to fill all that in. I'll just show you a little bit here. Again, watch how much glue you're using, because it will warp, but the paste will eventually hold it all together, so just persevere and you should be fine. So I'll just add a bit in here, and I'm not being fussy about it like I was saying, because we're going to do lots of texturing, which will sort all that out. Get another little piece in here. You can see how I'm just pressing it around to fit the space. There we go. Okay, so we just continue filling round all these little gaps. So I think it's about time to stop for a wee break. So I think when we're on the wee break for the wee advert, I'll just quickly fill in a little bit more of this for when we come back. See you shortly. Hi folks, welcome back to part 2. So you can see I've now finished filling in all these wee bits around the swirls. So don't worry about it being all lumpy bumpy, that's fine, that's going to help with the stone texturing. So we just need to flip it over and trim off the excess paste around the shape of the wafer paper that we had already there. Just trim off those pieces. There we are. Let's get rid of these wee extras. And that's our front piece. Almost done. We now just need to work on some texture. So we're going to use my super duper expensive tools again. Little bit of this. Little bit of that. Very easy. So just working your way into all the little swirl patterns, give it a nice rougher kind of stone texture. And if you lose the shape as you're doing this, don't worry, just go back in with your retool and widen it up again. So just keep making sure that you've got a nice clear path or swirl so that the light can shine through nice and clear. Just work your way around like that. I'll push that one back. There we are. Also back in with our tin foil, another high-tech gadget again. And when we paint this, the paint will pick up all these lovely little cracks and creases, like you can see on this one here. Okay. Maybe just work in a little bit more of this, a few areas like that. Just to kind of break it all up so it's not all identical kind of texture right across. You do want it to be varied across the whole surface, okay? There we are. Not bad. If there's any lines you want to blend together, I don't really worry about it too much because it does pick it up nicely for the texture, but if you are bothered by the wee lines that you had, you just blend them together with one of your tools. It's not a problem. Just like that. And again, you can go back in with texture. Okay, so once we've got that done, that is our front piece finished, as you can see. Okay, so now we need to work on, we'll just put that to one side for just now. Just make sure you've softened off the edges, sorry, that's the other thing to say, just kind of round them off. You can actually get in there with the texture tool at the edge as well. Texture tool. Toothbrush. Let's call a spade a spade. Okay, just to rough it up a wee bit so it's not too smooth. There we are. So we can pop that to one side. Now we need to work on the two sides and the back piece. So the back piece is identical shape to this, pretty much. So we'll just take a bit of paste, a little bit more paste, and roll that out. into a nice flat piece. So same size, just use this as a template and cut round. Oops, a wee bit more in for that one. Just line it up and trim round, there we are. There we are. Okay, so this is our back piece. Pretty much the same size. So I'm just going to round the edges. I'll trim a wee bit off for this corner here as well. And then same again. Now we have to remember that when the standing stone is standing in its 3D shape, this will be the back here. So just make sure you texture the right side. It's the opposite side. So back with our tin foil. Back with our scrubby brush. And back with our toothbrush. The reason I use two different types of this, by the way, is just to give a different amount of bristles, so you get a different effect. So this is finer detail. Okay, you can also go back in with one of your tools, like your little knife tool, and you can just add in a few little lines, maybe something like that. See on the back here, I've done that already. Okay, so just wherever you think. And again, in with a little bit more texturing. And go around the edges as well a little bit. There we are. So that's the back piece. We can set that to one side. Put the front piece up here as well. Now we'll work on the sides. So we need to make two sides like these. And now you've noticed I've made them triangular. And the reason I'm doing that is because we're going to fit the light at the bottom, which is going to light up our standing stone. So I'll show you on this, hopefully, if you can see. Move that to the side. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so in the middle of where our standing stone will be, there is a little light. Now these are called little finger lights, I think they were called. And you can see I've wrapped it in tin foil. So it's completely covered where it's inside the cake. It's just dropped in a little bit into the cake, okay? So just make sure that you completely cover your lights when you're using them. Don't have like bare lights sitting in cake. That's never good. So those are called finger lights. You can also use balloon lights. That's probably the more easier one for people to get their hands on. So these just twist to activate. So these are quite good, but again, you need to cover these in tin foil or something so that you're not gonna, or put them inside a straw or something like that so they're not going to touch the cake, okay? It's very important. So yeah, finger lights, balloon lights, something like that. So when you are making the sides of your standing stone, what you need to do is make sure that you're making them wide enough here that they're going to be able to take the light inside, okay? So you need to make sure there's enough width here for whatever light you're going to use, okay? So just work it out with the light that you have to make sure you've got enough space. Okay, so the other reason I do them triangular like this is to get a nice thin top, and also the angle of the front face means that the light is going to nicely catch all these. Nothing's going to be hidden from the light. It's easier to catch if it's slanted like that, okay? So triangular sides is what we're going for. So remember, one side will be shorter than the other, yeah? So what we will do next is our side. So I need some more paste. So I'll just roll out some paste. I also leave it thicker. You can see here I've left it quite thick, just to give it a little bit extra support. We'll roll that out. It can taper down to the top, so that's okay. There we are. So just use your sides as a guide, your front faces, sorry, as a guide. So we'll do the short one first and just trim it down to size. Yeah. So So it doesn't need to be quite as long because you want them to join at the top here. So not quite as long, just bring it a little bit shorter. I'm going to trim this side like this. And then bring your light over, whichever kind of light you're going to use. And just make sure there's enough width there for that. Okay. And then taper up to the top from there. And that's how you work out your triangles, okay? So that's one, that's the shorter side, and now I'll do the longer side. Let's give that a bit more of a knead. And roll that out again. Trim the bottom, trim one side. Maybe about there. And then same as before, just trim up to the top. Oh. So just make sure you've left enough width, which we have, that's fine. Okay. So that's our two sides. So with those, we need to, again, create that nice lined texture. Now, if we do it like a stone like this, that you get stones that look like they're layers of stone all compacted together, look like they'd almost flake off in layers. And that's what I've gone for here, because that's the type of stone you get around here, but also it actually helps hiding the other panels. When you've got a front and a back panel to put on, if you've got whole load of other lines or layers making it look like it's layers, then that's going to blend more nicely together. You don't need to worry about blending edges then, okay? So that works out quite nice. So with these, we'll just round off the edges. Don't want anything looking too cut, okay? Make sure everything's quite uneven. So just press these a wee bit to get rid of the edging. And then what we need to do is add in our lines. So I'm just going to use a little knife and work in some lines like this. Make some of them deeper, some of them closer together, you know, just vary it up a little. Same with this one. Stain them all up to the top corner. And then I quite like using this little knife tool just to add in a few extra shorter ones as well. Do some across the way, just a few extra little strokes, creases, cuts, whatever you want to call them. There we are. Okay, and then you can put in some bigger creases if you like. You don't have to, but you can if you want. So I think I'll put one, which one's this? A shorter one here. So I think I'll put one in maybe about here. Just like the stone's been cut. And again, you can go back in with your texture tool, toothbrush. A little bit there. Bring this back in. And I think on this one, I'll maybe put one up here as well. There we go. Our texture with this, just crease it up, open it out, just like before. It's just exactly the same as we were doing with that smaller stone to begin with. Okay, so that's us now with our two sides. Ooh, our front and back piece. So the way it'll go together is we'll have our back piece there, which will turn round, our side piece, our other side piece, and then our top will lay down like this. Okay. And then that leaves us room underneath. Once it's all dried, it can stand up by itself, and it still leaves us room to put the light in. Okay, so that's us got our 4 pieces made for the standing stone. So when we come back, we'll continue with putting that together. Hi folks, welcome back to part 3. So now we've got all our sides of our stone made. We need to glue those together. So I'm just going to use a little bit of my sugar glue or edible glue that I had. And we'll turn this piece over. This is the back piece, so we want the texture on the outside. And we'll take our longest piece for this side, at the edge. Make sure the textured edges are on the outside. A little bit of glue down there. And just glue that on in place, roughly. Just lining it up with the edge and the bottom. Press that into place. Same here. Making sure that the textured piece is on the outside of the stone. Another little bit of glue and pop it down as well. And just press into place. There we go. And then we're going to add the top front piece. So a little bit of glue here. And here. And then we also want it to attach at the top, so I'm just going to put a little line there as well. Like that. That should do. So be careful when you're handling this piece because it is still a little bit fragile. Obviously where there's no paste to hold it, it's a little bit more flimsy, so just be careful when you're handling it, but it holds together pretty well, I would say. To glue the pieces together, you're better waiting until it's maybe sort of set a little bit. Not enough that you can still bend it and work with it, but just so it's not too soft for handling, okay? And then just lay the top face on and line it all up. So just make sure the edges are nicely lined up. Press on the top there and down the side. That should be us. Now, I would suggest that once you've done that part, you leave it to dry before painting, okay? But you can see it's beginning to stand up now. If you want, actually, the other thing you can do just to make it look a bit more tied together, the front side and the sides, if you take your wee knife tool again. So you can see here I've got like a little angled line. I would actually just kind of add that in here as well. Just to kind of continue it on and make it look like it's all part of one stone. But you can see why I'm saying do this when it's a little bit more solid, because it will come apart in your hands if you're trying to do it too soft, like I am for this demo. Okay, so just wait a wee bit longer and then do it, I think. And that'll be fine. So same here, maybe just add that little line in there. Okay, and you can also go back with, you know, your tin foil and everything and just add a little bit more. Okay, but once that's painted up, those layers all kind of just disappear into each other, you see? So it's kind of cool, kind of helps you if you do all that. You can always add in another extra line down the side as well, you know, just to thin it up a bit. Yeah? So that is basically how you make the box, if you like, standing stone that will then light up later on, okay? There we are. So I'm going to put this to one side and, like I say, let it dry completely so it's firm, so you can handle it before you paint it. Not like I'm going to show you shortly as well, but if you can leave it like this until it's like this, that's much better and easier for you to work with, okay? So I'm going to take the little stone and I'm going to show you how I painted it up. So I've got some dusts here, and I've got some black dust down here and some greens and some yellows, and that's actually like an ivory kind of colour, and some vodka for painting with, and I'm going to grab some brushes. Just any brushes you like, doesn't really matter. So what I do for painting these, you need some kitchen roll for this part as well, okay? So when I'm painting these, I want to get into all the deepest parts where, like here, you see where that's picked up nice, dark, deep detail. So to do that, I'm going to use quite a bit of vodka with a tiny bit of dust. okay? And I'm going to do like a wash over the stone. And then I'm going to lift that off just by pressing the kitchen roll on and lifting it off. And you can see already that it's starting to get into the much deeper detail. So the more you build that up, the darker those bits will get and the top bits will be lighter, okay? So add some more in. And if it dries too much, just put some plain vodka on your brush, brush it over, and again lift it off. There you are, a little bit more detail gathering, okay? So you just layer it up like that until you're happy with the final effect, basically, okay? Depending on what colours you want your stones to be or whatever. I'm just kind of going with a kind of grey stone that we have up here in Scotland. Okay, so that's beginning to look pretty cool. And then you can just dab in some darker areas. And then you can also use a brush which has no paint on it. I'll just grab one from here. Just to blend by dabbing, okay? And that'll just blend it together. There we are. So that's how you basically do all these stones, okay? Now when I put them on the cake, I did also, I'll try and show you on this, I did also, hopefully you can see this, add a little bit of a green tinge to the bottom of these stones, okay? Just to look a little bit more like they've been there a while, there's a bit kind of greeniness growing about them, okay? So again, a little bit of vodka, a little bit of colour, and just dab it around the bottom there. Brush with no colour and just dab it to blend it. Okay, and that gives it a kind of a more older looking, kind of been here a while kind of look. Mouldy, maybe, is the word, okay? So just try and do that from the bottom up a wee bit. Doesn't need to be all the way up, but just, you know, a wee bit. And it just helps it sort of ground the stones to your cake. It just looks a wee bit better. So you do that all the way around. Same with the edges and the backs as well, all the way around. And you can do like the front and the sides and then let it dry. And then once it's dried, flip it over and do the back, okay? You don't need to do it all in one go, or you'll be all sticky and messy. So I did exactly the same process for this as well, okay? So you just do the same wash, build up the texture, build up the darkest, deepest colour. When you're going over the front, I'll try and do that just now for you. When you're going over the front, you have to be careful and not get the wafer paper wet or your tail right through it, okay? So you're trying to just brush across so that you're catching the sugar paste and not the wafer paper, okay? So I'll just show you just now if I can. It is a wee bit tricky, but it should be fine. So just watch you don't wet it too much. The wafer paper, I mean. So just work your way around rather than sort of scrubbing across the whole thing. Just try and work your way around the sections rather. But when it does come to that little bit in the middle, just very lightly try and catch it with your brush. There we are. See, just enough to catch it, but not catch the wafer paper. And you just continue with that. Just, you can see that I'm not digging in with a brush like this, it's flat to the sugar paste almost, and just trying to catch that top edge. And that should stop your paper disintegrating, hopefully. We'll see how yous get on, eh? Right. So that is basically how to do that, and again, a bit more vodka on these bits, give it a good old wash. Take your kitchen roll and rub it off. Okay, so you can see that's bringing in this lovely, lovely, lovely texture. It's one of my favourite things to make is stones and rock. How exciting is that? But I love it. Look at the texture, it's so easy. Love things like that. Okay, and just lift off. already looking pretty cool. Oops, got that with my kitchen roll. There we go. Okay, so again, remember on the biggest stone as well, just the same thing about the green as well. So you can just add a little bit in from the bottom as well. Give it a little bit of a mouldy look. We like mouldy and old when it comes to stones anyway. Right, so just blend that in again. Alright, so that's basically how you do the whole thing. So you do one side, you know, you can let it dry, flip it round, do the sides and whatever, okay? Exactly the same process all the way around. There's nothing different about any of the sides, it's all the same. So once that's painted as well, just set it to the side and let it dry as well. Same with the other stones, and then you can start putting the cake together. So now we'll talk about painting the actual cake. So I'll just flip my camera around, I think, and we'll continue with painting the cake.
Every house needs a strong foundation. I've teamed up with my former college tutor, Cecilia Young, to bring you over 25 years worth of knowledge and experience packed into this fantastic programme. Within these 8 individually assessed modules, we've covered the fundamental building blocks required to take your cake decorating skills to the next level. And that's not all. Each programme is accredited by FDQ, a leading UK organisation for the food industry. We look forward to welcoming you on the CakeFlix Master Programme.
Hi folks, welcome back to part 4. So we're going to continue with painting. So we're going to do the cake now, this part. This is just made out of Rice Krispie treats, but you could make it out of cake if you want. And all I did was howked a wee bit out, oh, that's a good Scottish word, cut a small piece nicely out of the top of your cake, which is where your little light will go, okay? Now when you're putting a light into a cake, it does need to be completely covered so it's not touching the cake. So the way I do that is cover it with tin foil. I'll show you with this one. Okay, so the base there is covered in tin foil for putting in. So you can see that everything that's inside the cake there is covered in tin foil. What I would probably do as well, is what I did on here, is actually cover the whole of the top part as well, okay? Now what I would be telling my customer is that this stone is a non-edible part. I just wouldn't bother going near that with edibles. So just tell your customer this is a non-edible part, but then once they've removed the light, everything else is fine, okay? Because there's nothing else touching the cake. That's probably how I'd handle that bit, okay? So just make sure the hole in the top is big enough for your wee light to go in. Okay, so let's paint this up a wee bit. So I've got some dusts again and the vodka, and I'm just going to use different greens. And I'm going to do a similar technique with the stone, where I'm going to start off brushing on just a general green, but then use my kitchen roll to lift some off. Okay, so you start getting darker bits and lighter parts, and just work your way around the whole cake doing that. So I'm going to lift a different green. I've got a darker green here. I'll start mixing that in. So you can see you start to build up different tones. So it's not all the same sort of flat one colour, which can be a little bit boring to look at. So it's a bit nicer to add a few more colours in. Remember, if you've gone too dark or you can't get it lifted off, just back in with the vodka again over the top and you can lift that off, okay? So I'm going to use maybe some yellow as well, or maybe add some yellow in. Doesn't always have to be greens, you can add yellows, blues, reds, whatever you want to get a nice sort of different colour range, okay? So let's add in some yellow, around this side maybe. and start adding in some yellow, so you can see you're getting another tone there. So just working your way around the whole cake with all different tones. I'm going with some plain vodka there. And again, lift some off. So it does exactly the same as it did with the stone. It picks up all the sort of texture as well. So you get this kind of nice grassy mound texture. Now I also added some stones around the side. You can probably see these best. I added in some little stones, which is just little bits of sugar paste with some lines in. So you can maybe do those a different colour like I did down here. So it looks kind of like a rocky kind of surface. So to do that, I'm just using this ivory colour, which is like a kind of quite a dark ivory. But again, just very watery. And just paint across them. And then with the kitchen roll, just lift off. Okay, so it gets into all the deep parts again. And you can build that up with different tones and darknesses as well until you get something like this. Okay, so that's how I do those. So you basically, yeah, just continue on the greens right round the whole cake if you're doing the whole stone circle, okay? And then you choose your light. Now this one is lit up with the blue one. I'm not sure if you can see in this light actually. There you go. Blue light. You can try it in different colours. So we'll use, this is the one that we were making earlier, so it's not quite dry yet, but I'll just try and use it for today. So I'll just pop that in. Now remember, I'll better do this so you guys remember as well. A little bit of tin foil, I would do it right round the whole, as much of the light as possible anyway. You do also get like sticky foil, which might be really good for wrapping this. It would stick a bit better to the light. I'm just leaving a wee gap for where this switch is. These ones have switches. Okay, but you can also use balloon lights, they're pretty good. In fact, let's use that one. Where you just twist them when they come on, so that's quite cool. You just put them on at the last minute, so that's what I would be doing if I was delivering this cake. I would just at the last minute pop the light in, put it on, pop this on, just before it was delivered or collected or whatever. Yeah, I've seen me even take it with me to the venue and just pop it on at the very last minute. So these are quite good for wrapping, these ones, because you just go right around the whole thing. So I'll just pop it on. And wrap it up. So just wrapping round. Make sure the bottom's covered as well. So these are probably pretty cool for using, so we'll pop that one in. Ooh, just blinded myself on it. Right, there we are. Let's see if this works. Woo! Look at that. See? No light. No light. Isn't that cool? I think it's so fun. So yeah, that is basically how we light up a standing stone. So only other thing I would do with this, I'll just paint a wee bit more so I can then show you what I do. I'm going to have to turn this off for blind myself on it if I can. Oh, I can't. Right, I'm going to put it to one side. I've got dots in front of my eyes. I'm just going to paint a wee bit more into here so I can then show you round these guys. What I did was I put a little bit of kind of moss just to really ground the stone to the cake. Okay, so it looks more like it's going into the ground. When you have a sort of sugar paste stone and you just kind of stick it on, it doesn't quite blend in a bit. So I'm using a tiny bit of this edible moss and I'll show you how to do that. So I'll just quickly finish this off here around the front. That'll do. Okay. So I'll put this back in and try and not look at it. Oh dear. There we are. Okay, gosh, that does look cool, doesn't it? What's happened to this one? It's gone very light. Run out of battery. No, it's still going. I think it's just because the sun's come out on it. It is still going. Promise. Okay. So this looks really cool. I like the white light actually. Interesting. You get different effects actually. I'll show you with the red as well while I'm at it. Why not? I'll just quickly show you. Oh. Look, ooh, that's a needle spirit, that one, I think. Isn't that smart? So you just use any colour of light you like, actually. Quite like the red, but maybe we'll stick with this one because it's all nicely wrapped in the tin foil, so we better use the one that's done right. There we are. Okay, so basically what I did for, like I was speaking about grounding it to the ground, if that makes sense, just make it look a bit more like there's moss around it and things. What I did was digestive biscuits, which I believe are like Graham's crackers. Correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, but I think that might be right. If you're American, I think that's what it is. And I smush them up, and that's a pestle and mortar I've been using, because I don't like any other kind of biscuity bits in it. I don't want big lumps, you want it all really fine. Okay, so once you've squished it all up really fine, then you just add some of the dust. So I use the darkest colour of dust and pop that in there. And literally all I'm doing, now the paint is wet so it will actually stick to it, but normally I would use a little bit of sugar glue and just right round the edges, not a huge big line, but just a little bit round the edges where you want it to stick. And then I just take some on a wee teaspoon, and I pop it in where I want it to go. I'll try and bring this closer for you, so you can maybe see it a little easier. Hopefully you can see that. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so you can see where I've just filled it in a wee bit. And I'm just gonna gently press it in a little bit more. There. That's kind of what you want it looking like. So not huge big mounds of moss, I'm just putting like a teeny wee bit, just to kind of connect it to the ground. And I would do that all the way around, pretty much. Okay? And there you go. That is pretty much it, I think. Have we done everything? I believe we have. Wow, I'm quicker this time, I think. Yes! Excellent. Right, I'm just going to flip my camera and we'll do a quick recap. Hi guys, so that's our illuminated standing stone finished. I just think they look so cool. Nice white light on that one. This one we had our blue light. There's sun coming in, which is, there you go. Look at that. Okay, so the main points to remember are, if you're using lights and cake, they need to be completely covered so they're not going to touch the cake at all, okay? And probably on the safe side, just say it's a non-edible part to be removed before eating, just like you would with a sugar flour that has wires in it or whatever, yeah? So, yeah, just lots of texturing, dusts with vodka, washes, to get all the nice texture, and that is good to go. I can see this being used on so many things though. Can you imagine, like, you know, Egyptian designs, or I don't know, loads of things. So have a go, let me know how you get on. I'll post close-up pictures on my webpage, which is jmcakecraft.com, and there's links to all the other tutorials as well, all the other demos down here, and tutorials that I have with CakeFlix and everything. So pop on there and you'll see close-up pictures of these if you want to see all the detail and remind yourself of the various steps, okay? But thanks for joining me, and I'll hopefully see you again soon. Bye!